This topic is going to be a surprise to many people, but people who go very deep in the world of personal growth won't be surprised at all. This is one of those tools where we rip open all of the fake, the fallacies we have about ourselves, that we get real, that we get on point, that we get honest, that we get vulnerable. And it's about using anger and or rage as a way for self-healing. Now, it sounds oxymoronic, doesn't it? It's like, David, you want me to get upset? You want me to be enraged? And the answer is yeah. And I have a personal story. I've got 1,000 other stories to tell you. But, I want to tell you about how I found this to be one of the most powerful healing tools for myself and so many of my clients that are willing to do the deep, hard, dark work, as we call it. A number of years ago, a woman approached me and said she wanted to be part of the business, and she had some great ideas, which I admitted to. They sounded awesome. And after we talked for quite a while, she became, I'll say, a partner in one way, at least on this one project we were working on. And as we stayed together and continued working on the project, I said to her at some point, because we are partners, there's going to be expenses down the road. And I want to make sure that you're going to be able to afford them and make sure that you're open and you're in agreement to pay them. And she said, oh, my God, not a problem at all. And so we got to the first part of the program that demanded quite a large deposit, and I said, okay, this 50% of this is yours. And she said, oh my God, right now I'd love to be able to do it, but I can't. And I said, okay, but this is our partnership. And I said, I'll let this go. But, if we're going to go into the next level, there's going to be more and more of these type of expenses, and we have to be ready to go. So we continued working, and we were getting along well at some times. And then there were other times we had completely different opinions, and negotiating is always really hard when you have one idea and the person you're working with has another idea. We started working through some of those things, and then we got to the big one. And the big one was a pretty large commitment that she was responsible for. And she even said to me one day, David, I know I haven't carried my weight in the past. And I know you said that you only want me to be part of this project if I'm going to be financially committed as well as time committed. So I'm going to take care of this next one. It's a year long. I'm going to pay every month. I'll take care of the expense. You don't have to worry about a thing. And then after that, we'll get back in to splitting. And I said, fantastic. I love your integrity. I love your maturity. So the first month, she wrote me a check, and it was bad, and there was some kind of an excuse. It was an account that had been closed. She forgot about it. The second month, she wrote me a check, and it was no good. The third, and then at the end of the third month, I just said, hey, listen, this is absolute ridiculousness, and it's actually a felony. If you're writing 3 bad checks in a row and you know that they're bad checks, I said, we have to go our separate ways, And we did. And then we danced a little bit. And I don't know if it was 6 months later or something like that. I brought her back in for another part of the project. And the same thing happened again, and there was a commitment, financial commitment on her part that fell through. And oh my God, I'm going, all right, enough already. And then one day, I was just filled with anxiety. I was walking back and forth in my house. I went out to the pool, and I'm just walking back and forth in the pool, and I'm wondering why I'm so angry, why I'm so frustrated, why am I so upset, and all of a sudden it hit me. The years of not taking care of my anger and rage at what had happened with this person caught up with me. I had submerged. I had suppressed them. I had not wanted to deal with how angry I was at myself and her, but mostly at myself. Because I said to myself in the pool as I'm getting really upset with myself, I'm saying, David, the only reason she could have let you down 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years is because you let her. She showed her true colors, but you kept bringing her back in. That's you, brother. That's 100% your fault. You can go ahead and say she made promises and she canceled them and everything. And the first time, sure. But after that, you let her in so many more times, you're suffering because you have not dealt with your own anger itself. Throw her out the window. This anger isn't about her. It's about you. In that pool, I got so enraged. I started calling myself all kinds of names. And how could you be so ignorant? And my God, were you codependent to keep letting her in? But what is going on? And then I got out of the pool. And for 45 straight minutes, I wrote about my anger at myself, my disappointment with myself. How could I do that? I'm smarter than this. I've never gotten myself into this kind of situation financially before, trusting someone who couldn't be trusted. But, it's one thing to trust someone who can't be trusted. It's another thing to let them come back in again and again and again and again. David Essel's fault. 45 minutes of writing the rage I had at myself for doing it. Some people do the same exercise with addiction. They had an addiction for 20, 30 years, and they finally get to the point that they're going to admit how mad they are at themselves for not doing anything about it, and then others could be that they married someone, and in the marriage they knew they shouldn't have, and they did, and it went down the tubes, and, they're mad at the other person. No, they're mad at themselves. And when you get to your own sense of anger, you can freaking heal. But if you keep projecting that it's always the other people's fault, you can never heal. You can't go to the next level of human consciousness. You can't raise your vibration, right? Because the anger at yourself, the rage at yourself is keeping your own vibration down. After writing for 45 minutes, how pissed I was at myself. And then the time in the pool, it was over an hour and a half. It might have been 2 hours altogether. I got back in the pool. I put my head on a float, thank God. And I had the biggest adrenaline dump I have ever had. My whole body went limp. I fell asleep with my head on the float for probably 10 minutes. I was exhausted in a great way. When I finally came to, got out of the pool and sat, I realized the miracle that had just happened. I stared across at this tree, so totally focused, so at peace, and understanding that my anger and rage that I had never dealt with had held me back so much over the last several years, that my anger at her was a waste of time. She was never going to change. She was never going to make up for anything that she promised she would do. It just who she is, and I can't control that. But letting myself feel for the first time how disappointed in me I was freed me completely. I let my anger go at myself. I let my anger go at her. And I found this immense amount of peace. Now, there are many professionals that will disagree with me and say, you're just triggering yourself. You're just going to trigger. Now, if you have mental health issues, if you're suicidal, if you're bipolar, if you're borderline personality disorder, no, this exercise is not for you. If you have any type of serious depression, no, this exercise isn't for you. But if you are just in a position of saying, why is life so difficult? Why am I unsettled? Why am I angry? Why am I always arguing on social media? There's reasons. And when you get to those reasons and call yourself out and go to the depth that I just shared that I went to, and so many of my clients I've asked to do over the years have become completely healed. If you need help, reach out to me at talkdavid.com. This is a part of life that very few people want to deal with. They don't want to hear about it. They want to listen to because they want to keep projecting blame. I wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for them. Instead, I'm in this situation because of me. I'll take full responsibility so I can finally heal my life. Join me at talkdavid.com. We can do the same with you. I'm David Essel. Have a beautiful day.